Sunni Islam. Let's start with the majority, the big kahuna, Sunni Islam. When Muhammad died, he didn't leave a will. No designated heir, no succession plan. Just a power vacuum and a bunch of confused followers standing around wondering, who's in charge now? The Sunnis said, let's vote. Well, not exactly democracy, but close enough for 7th century Arabia. Community consensus. The people who became known as Sunnis believed leadership should go to the most qualified person, not necessarily someone from Muhammad's bloodline. They chose Abu Bakr, Muhammad's close companion and father-in-law, then Umar, then Uthman, then Ali. These four became known as the rightly guided caliphs, and Sunnis accept all of them as legitimate. This is important. Remember this, because the Shia, they don't. The name Sunni comes from Ahl al-Sunnah, people of the tradition. They follow the Sunnah, Muhammad's recorded practices preserved in 6 major hadith collections. Think of hadiths as the director's commentary on the Quran. Muhammad said this. Muhammad did that. Muhammad preferred his sandals tied this way. Today, 85 to 90% of Muslims are Sunni. That's roughly 1.5 billion people across the Middle East, North Africa, South Asia, Southeast Asia, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Turkey, Pakistan, Indonesia, the works. Sunni Islam has 4 major schools of Islamic law: Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, Hanbali, each with slightly different interpretations, but all orthodox, all acceptable. It's like having 4 different instruction manuals for the same divine IKEA furniture. What makes Sunni Islam successful is flexibility. They use community consensus, ijma, and analogical reasoning, qiyas, alongside the Quran and Hadith. New situation, new century, new technology. The scholars figure it out without contradicting core principles. The real genius of Sunni Islam isn't rigid orthodoxy, it's adaptable orthodoxy. Shia Islam. Now, the other side, Shia Islam. When Muhammad died, the Shia said, wait, he did designate a successor. Ali, his cousin, his son-in-law, the father of his grandchildren. Muhammad appointed him at Ghadir Qum, and you all just ignored it? This isn't a minor theological disagreement. This is 1,400 years of you stole the caliphate. Shia Islam, 10 to 15% of Muslims, roughly 180 to 200 million people, believes leadership should have passed through Muhammad's bloodline via Ali, not through election, through divine appointment. And these leaders? They're not just political figures. They're imams with a capital I, divinely appointed, infallible, spiritual guides who interpret Islamic law with authority no scholar can match. Most Shia are Twelvers, who recognize 12 imams, starting with Ali and ending with Muhammad al-Mahdi, who, according to Shia belief, went into occultation in 874 CE. He didn't die. He's hidden, waiting. And one day, he'll return as the Mahdi to establish justice before the Day of Judgment. So Twelver Shia have been waiting for their 12th Imam for 1,150 years. Shia dominate in Iran, 90 to 95% of the population. They're the majority in Iraq, Bahrain, Azerbaijan, significant minorities in Lebanon, Yemen, Pakistan, India. Every year, Shia commemorate Ashura, the martyrdom of Hussein ibn Ali, Muhammad's grandson, killed at the Battle of Karbala in 680 CE. This event crystallized Shia identity, its mourning, its passion plays, its ritual self-flagellation in some communities, its collective trauma that's been ritualized for 13 centuries. Shia use different hadith collections, the 4 books instead of the Sunni 6. They have different legal rulings. They practice mut'ah, temporary marriage, which Sunnis call prostitution and prohibit entirely. What's the real difference between Sunni and Shia? One group thinks they got robbed at the very beginning, and they've never forgotten. Here's one you've probably never heard of. Ibadi Islam, the oldest surviving Islamic sect from the First Islamic Civil War. The Kharijites, the ones who left, emerged after the Battle of Siffin in 657 CE, when Ali and his opponent agreed to arbitration to settle their dispute. A group of Ali's own soldiers said, wait, you're submitting God's law to human arbitration? Heresy. And they left. The Kharijites became known for extreme positions. Any Muslim who commits a major sin? Not a Muslim anymore. Kill them. The caliph does something you disagree with? Overthrow him. violently. Most Kharijite groups died out, but the Ibadis, a moderate strain named after Abdullah ibn Ibad, survived. 2 to 3 million people, mostly in Oman, where there's 75% of the population. Small communities in Libya, Algeria, Zanzibar. Ibadis rejected both Ali and his opponents after Siffin. They only accept the first 2 caliphs, Abu Bakr and Umar, as legitimate. Leadership, they say, should be determined solely by personal piety and religious merit, not tribe, not family, not bloodline. Their mosques are simple, unadorned, no elaborate displays of wealth, because wealth corrupts leadership, and they've seen it happen for 1,400 years. Ibadi Islam is what happens when you split from both major groups at the very beginning, and somehow survive through sheer stubbornness and geographic isolation. Now let's talk about the mystics. Sufism. If Sunni and Shia are arguing about leadership and law, Sufis are in the corner saying, "Can we just experience God directly, please?" Sufism is the mystical dimension of Islam. It exists across Sunni and Shia traditions. It emerged between the 8th and 9th centuries, when practitioners said external religious observance isn't enough. We want purification of the soul, love of God, direct experience of the divine. They practice dhikr, remembrance of God through repetitive chanting of his names, rhythmic breathing, and, in some orders, ecstatic dancing. The Mevlevi order, the whirling dervishes, spin in circles as meditation. It's hypnotic, it's transcendent, and it looks absolutely wild. Sufis organize into tariqas, spiritual orders led by a sheikh or pir, who traces their spiritual lineage back through generations of masters to Muhammad or Ali. Major orders include Qadiriyya, Naqshbandiyya, Shadiliyya, Mevlevi. Each has distinct practices. They incorporate music, poetry, art. Rumi, the 13th century Persian poet whose works are bestsellers in America, was a Sufi. Ibn Arabi developed sophisticated philosophical frameworks reconciling mystical experience with orthodox theology. Sufism spread Islam peacefully across Africa, South Asia, Southeast Asia, through charismatic saints and the appeal of devotional practices. But it's also controversial, because Sufis venerate saints. They visit shrines. They ask saints to intercede with God. And reformists say, that's shirk, associating partners with God. That's the one unforgivable sin in Islam. Several 100 million Muslims incorporate Sufi practices. But in Saudi Arabia, Sufism is basically illegal. Sufism doesn't reject Islamic law. It just asks, what's law without love? What's ritual without inner transformation? Salafi movement. Speaking of those reformists, the Salafi movement. If Sufism says add mysticism, Salafism says subtract everything that's not from the first 3 generations. Salafis want to return to the Salaf, the companions of Muhammad and their immediate successors. Pure Islam before innovations allegedly corrupted it. And by innovations, they mean Sufi mysticism, saint veneration, philosophical theology, birthday celebrations, basically anything that wasn't explicitly done in 7th century Arabia. The movement draws from Ibn Taymiyyah, 13th century scholar, and Muhammad ibn Abd al-Wahhab, 18th century preacher, who founded Wahhabism in alliance with the House of Saud. When Saudi Arabia was established in 1932, Wahhabi-influenced Salafism became official state religion. After the 1979 Iranian Revolution, Saudi Arabia invested billions spreading Salafi interpretations globally. Mosques, schools, media. They fundamentally reshaped Islamic discourse in many regions. 50 to 100 million adherents. Though Salafism is more a theological orientation than a formal sect, Salafis emphasize literal interpretation of Quran and Hadith. They oppose centuries of accumulated Islamic jurisprudence they view as corrupted. They want pure monotheism, tawheed, no intercession, no intermediaries, no philosophical abstractions. The movement has 3 main orientations. Purist Salafis, focused on education and personal piety. Activist Salafis, engaged in political organizing. Jihadist Salafis, believe violence is necessary to establish Islamic governance. The vast majority reject terrorism, but that third group, they've caused catastrophic damage and given the entire movement a reputation problem. Salafism is what happens when you decide 1,400 years of Islamic scholarship is basically wrong, and only the first generation got it right. Ahmadiyya. Now we get to the really controversial ones. Ahmadiyya, founded in 1889 by Mirza Ghulam Ahmad in British India. He claimed he was the promised Messiah, the Mahdi, the figure foretold in Islamic tradition who would come to revive the faith. The problem? Mainstream Islamic theology holds that Muhammad was the final prophet, the seal of the prophets. No prophet after him, ever. So when Mirza Ghulam Ahmad claimed prophethood, the Muslim world said, heretic. 10 to 20 million members worldwide, though numbers are disputed. Organized into two branches after a 1914 split. Ahmadiyya Muslim community, larger, led by a caliph, headquartered in London. Lahore Ahmadiyya movement, smaller, interprets Ahmad's role less literally. Ahmadis emphasize peaceful propagation. They reject violent jihad. They've translated the Quran into numerous languages and established mosques in over 200 countries. But they face severe persecution. Pakistan's constitution declared Ahmadis non-Muslim in 1974. They're prohibited from calling themselves Muslims, using Islamic terminology, or performing Islamic practices publicly. Penalty? Imprisonment. Indonesia banned the movement. Violent mobs have attacked Ahmadi communities. Ahmadis consider themselves Muslims. They practice the 5 pillars, but they add belief in Mirza Ghulam Ahmad's prophetic status, and that's the irreconcilable divide. Ahmadiyya is what happens when you add a prophet to a religion that explicitly says there can't be another prophet. The Druze faith emerged in 1017 CE from Ismaili Shia Islam in Fatimid Egypt. The founder, Hamza ibn Ali, claimed that the Fatimid Caliph al-Hakim bi Amr Allah was a divine incarnation, God, in human form. This caused immediate rupture with Islam, and the Druze developed as an entirely separate religion. 1 to 2 million adherents, mostly in Lebanon, 5 to 6% of population, Syria, 3%, and Israel, 1.6%. Their theology incorporates Greek philosophy, Neoplatonism, Gnosticism. They believe in reincarnation. Souls transmigrate only within the Druze community, maintaining the same number of souls across generations. The faith closed in 1043 CE. They stopped accepting converts. You're born Druze, or you're not Druze. Ever. The community divides into 2 groups. Ukal, initiated, access to religious knowledge, wear distinctive white head coverings. Juhal, uninitiated, the majority, excluded from inner teachings. Druze don't follow the 5 pillars of Islam. They don't pray in mosques. They meet in simple houses called khalwa. They don't observe Islamic dietary laws. Virtually all Muslim scholars classify them as non-Muslims. In Israel, Druze serve in the military, unlike other Arab citizens, maintaining unique status through strategic political alliances. The Druze survived for a millennium through secrecy, strict endogamy, fierce defense of mountain strongholds, and being so theologically weird that everyone just left them alone. Ismaili Shia. Back to Shia branches. Ismaili Shia. The split happened in 765 CE, over succession to the 6th Imam. Ismailis recognized Ismail ibn Ja'far as the legitimate 7th Imam. 12er Shia followed his brother, Musa al-Kadhim. 15 to 20 million Ismailis worldwide. The key difference? Ismailis have a living, visible Imam providing guidance. Currently, the Aga Khan IV, the 49th hereditary Imam of the Nizari Ismailis. He inherited the position in 1957 at age 20 and has led the community's modernization and global expansion for nearly 70 years. Historically, Ismailis established the Fatimid Caliphate, 909 to 1171, that ruled North Africa and Egypt. They founded Cairo in 969. They established Al-Azhar University, which later became one of Sunni Islam's most prestigious institutions after the dynasty's fall. The tradition divides into 2 main branches. Nizari Ismailis, majority, follow the Aga Khan's lineage. Mustatli Ismailis, concentrated in Yemen and India, led by a Da'i al-Mutlaq, rather than a present Imam. Ismaili theology emphasizes esoteric interpretation. Zahir, exoteric/apparent, and batin, esoteric/hidden. You need the Imam's guidance to understand the hidden dimension. The Aga Khan Development Network operates hundreds of schools, universities, hospitals, and development projects across Asia and Africa. Education, healthcare, economic development as religious imperatives. Ismaili Shia is what happens when you keep the Imam visible, adapt to modernity, and build a global humanitarian network worth billions. Zaidi Shia, named after Zayd ibn Ali, 695 to 740 CE, who led an unsuccessful uprising against the Umayyad Caliphate. His rebellion established Zaidi principles, active resistance against unjust rule, rather than quietist waiting for a hidden imam. 8 to 10 million adherents. Concentrated in Yemen, 35 to 40% of the population. Zaydis are the Shia branch closest to Sunni Islam. They don't believe in occultation of a hidden imam. They don't believe in infallibility of imams. Any learned descendant of Ali and Fatima who publicly claims leadership through action can become imam. The imam must be visible, political, military, not hidden. Zaydis accept the legitimacy of the first three caliphs, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, unlike other Shia groups who reject them. Their jurisprudence and practices closely resemble Sunni traditions. The Zaydi imamate ruled northern Yemen for centuries until the 1962 revolution overthrew the last Zaydi imam. Today, the Houthi movement, which controls significant portions of northern Yemen since 2014, draws support primarily from Zaydi communities. They claim to represent Zaydi interests against Sunni marginalization, though scholars debate whether Houthis represent traditional Zaydi theology or just use religious identity for political mobilization. Zaydi Shia is what happens when you combine Shia reverence for Ali's family with Sunni-style pragmatism and a requirement that your imam actually shows up and fights. Nation of Islam. Now, let's talk about America, the Nation of Islam. Founded in 1930 in Detroit by Wallace Fard Muhammad, who disappeared in 1934. Leadership passed to Elijah Muhammad, who led until 1975 and developed a theology that mainstream Muslims universally reject as heretical. Why? Because he claimed Fard was God incarnate and Elijah Muhammad was his prophet. Islam's fundamental belief: Muhammad ibn Abdullah is the final prophet, no prophet after him. Nation of Islam also taught a racial theology. Black people are the original humans. White people are a race created by an evil scientist named Yaqub 6,000 years ago. This isn't orthodox Islamic theology. This is black nationalist ideology using Islamic elements. But here's the context: Jim Crow segregation, systemic racism, black communities devastated by poverty and violence. The Nation of Islam provided structure, community support, economic independence, self-respect. They established mosques, schools, businesses. They enforced strict moral codes: no alcohol, drugs, extramarital sex, modest dress, disciplined behavior. Famous members: Malcolm X, joined in prison 1946, left in 1964 after discovering Elijah Muhammad's moral failings, embraced Orthodox Sunni Islam. Muhammad Ali, joined 1961, remained loyal through transitions. After Elijah Muhammad died in 1975, his son, Warith Deen Muhammad, led the majority into Orthodox Sunni Islam, abandoning racial theology. Louis Farrakhan split away in 1977 to revive original Nation of Islam teachings. He still leads a smaller organization today. The Nation of Islam isn't recognized as Islamic by the global Muslim community, but it played a crucial role in African American history and introduced thousands of Black Americans to Islam. Nation of Islam is what happens when you combine legitimate grievances, community need, Black nationalism, and religious heterodoxy into something that mainstream Muslims don't recognize, but that served a specific purpose in a specific time. Quranists, also known as Quran-only Muslims, or Ahl al-Quran. Their position? The Quran alone provides sufficient guidance. Hadith literature, compiled 2 to 3 centuries after Muhammad died, can't be verified with enough certainty to serve as binding religious law. Remember, Sunni Islam has 6 major hadith collections, millions of reported sayings and actions of Muhammad, transmitted through chains of narrators across generations. Quranists say, how do we know these are accurate? How do we know people didn't fabricate hadiths to support their political positions? How do we know the chain of transmission is reliable? And besides, the Quran repeatedly describes itself as complete, clear, fully detailed. Why would God reveal an incomplete scripture requiring supplementary texts? 1 to 5 million adherents globally, though reliable data is unavailable. The movement is decentralized. No central organization, no unified theology, mostly online communities. Quranist rejection of hadith leads to diverse practices. Some pray 3 times daily instead of 5. Quran mentions 3. 5 comes from hadith. Others interpret pilgrimage requirements differently. Many adopt more flexible positions on Islamic law. It's rationalist Islam, personal interpretation, individual responsibility. Modern scholars include Edip Yüksel and the controversial Rashad Khalifa, who claimed to discover a mathematical code in the Quran before his murder in 1990. Quranists face persecution in some Muslim-majority countries because rejecting hadith undermines the entire structure of traditional Islamic jurisprudence. Quranists are what happens when you apply Protestant Reformation logic to Islam. Sola scriptura, the Quran alone.